Most people will spend 90,000 hours of their life working. That's not a typo. 90,000 hours. And at the end of it, the average person retires with less than $50,000 saved. Not enough to last 3 years. Certainly not enough to call freedom. So here's the question nobody is asking. What if the entire approach was wrong from the beginning? Not wrong in a small, fixable way. Wrong at the foundation. Wrong in a way that guarantees most people will work their entire lives and still end up financially fragile. Because here's what I've come to understand. Wealth isn't about working harder. It isn't about earning more. It isn't even about saving more aggressively. It follows an equation. A specific, learnable, repeatable equation. And the people who figured it out didn't just get rich, they got free. This video is about that equation. And I promise you, by the time this is over, the way you see money will never be quite the same again. There's a version of your life where money is never a source of stress again. No more calculating whether you can afford something. No more lying awake wondering how the bills get paid. No more watching other people live the life you want and telling yourself it wasn't meant for you. That version exists, and it follows a specific set of rules. Rules that nobody taught you in school. Rules that the wealthiest people in the world understand deeply, and that most people go their entire lives never discovering. But before we get into them, we need to address something first: the way you currently think about money. Because if that foundation is broken, nothing else we discuss will land the way it needs to. So let's start there. You're probably working a job right now, one you worked hard to qualify for, one you spent years preparing for. But despite all that effort, your savings are thin, maybe non-existent. Your bills feel suffocating. You feel underpaid, overworked, and trapped in a cycle with no visible exit. Maybe you're still in university, betting everything on a degree you hope opens the right doors. Maybe you've already graduated, and the debt followed you straight out of the building. And somewhere in the back of your mind, the dream still breathes. The house, the car, the freedom to travel, the ability to clear your family's debt without blinking. But every time that dream surfaces, reality pulls it back under. So you start to wonder, how did they do it? You see the young millionaires, the self-made billionaires, and the frustration turns into something heavier. They got lucky. They were born into it. The game was rigged before I even sat down. And honestly, that conclusion is easy to reach. Because from where most people are standing, the game does look impossible to win. But what if that conclusion is wrong? What if there's an actual framework, a real, repeatable equation behind the way wealth is built? What if the people you've been watching didn't stumble into success, but followed a set of principles that simply nobody bothered to teach you? I'm not here to sell you a fantasy. I'm here to show you the side of the coin you haven't been shown. Fair warning, though, this path is not comfortable. It will demand things of you that school never prepared you for. And the truth is, most people who start this journey won't see it through to the end. But for the ones who do, the reward isn't just money. It's something far more valuable than that. First, we need to talk about your relationship with money itself. Is it something you work for? Something you earn? Something you inherit? Something that makes people corrupt? Most people's beliefs about money were formed before they had any real say in the matter, shaped by the family they grew up in, the neighborhood they lived in, the conversations they absorbed at the dinner table before they even understood what money really was. If money was scarce in your household, part of you likely believes it will always be scarce. Or maybe the opposite happened. Maybe growing up without it lit a fire in you, a quiet, burning refusal to ever be in that position again. Either way, the beliefs you carry about money are quietly doing more damage than you realize. And school? School barely touched the subject, which means most of what you believe about wealth was absorbed from culture, films, and people who were just as lost as you were. Hollywood spent decades painting the wealthy as corrupt, villainous, morally bankrupt, and some of that portrayal stuck. But here's a data point worth sitting with. A report from WealthX found that among the world's ultra-wealthy, people with a net worth above $30 million, 68% were entirely self-made. Warren Buffett, self-made. Howard Schultz, born in poverty. Oprah Winfrey, born in poverty. Jeff Bezos, self-made. Elon Musk, Self-made. Sarah Blakely. Self-made. These people didn't inherit their way to the top. They understood something about money that the average person doesn't. And that gap in understanding is exactly what we're about to close. Here is the equation you were taught. Money equals salary from a job. After a certain point, landing a job becomes the entire purpose of your education. Study hard, get the degree, get hired, get paid, repeat for 40 years. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. But let's run the actual numbers. If you earn $20 an hour, work a standard 40-hour week, and never take a single day off, it would take you nearly 24 years to gross $1 million. That's before taxes, before rent, before food, before life happens. Factor all of that in, and by the time you reach that number, your most energetic, most creative, most capable years are already behind you. You traded your prime for a paycheck, and inflation quietly eroded its value the entire time. This is a fundamental flaw in the equation you inherited. It creates a ceiling, and that ceiling is your time. In a traditional job, your income is directly tied to the hours you show up. There are only so many hours in a day, which means your earning potential is permanently capped. So how are people building real wealth in their 20s and 30s? What do they understand that most people don't? They're operating from a completely different equation. Stop chasing money. I know how that sounds, but stay with me. In a functioning market economy, you are compensated in proportion to the value the market places on what you offer, not how hard you work, not how long you've been doing it, and not how much you personally need the income. The market pays for what it values. A professional footballer earns millions because billions of people watch and support the sport. That demand creates that income. Meanwhile, a cleaner may work harder physically than anyone else in the building, yet the market assigns that work a lower value because the barrier to entry is lower. Uncomfortable? Yes. But understanding this principle is where everything begins to shift, because the question stops being, how do I work harder? And starts becoming, how do I deliver something the market values more? And the most powerful answer to that question is simple: solve problems. Every dollar that has ever exchanged hands traces back to a problem being solved. Amazon solved the frustration of traditional shopping: slower delivery, higher prices, limited selection, the inconvenience of visiting a store. That wasn't a minor irritation. It was a billion-dollar problem, and the solution was rewarded at exactly that scale. Jeff Bezos didn't wake up chasing money. He identified a gap the market desperately wanted filled, then built an empire around filling it. This is the mental shift everything else depends on. Stop asking, how do I make more money? Start asking, what problems do people actually have? Listen differently. What do people complain about constantly? What do they say is broken, frustrating, inconvenient, or missing? That is your entry point. And no, you do not need to build the next Amazon. You don't need millions in capital. You don't need to know how to code. You need a real problem, a real solution, and the willingness to build around it. But finding a problem isn't enough. The solution has to be scalable. This is what separates an interesting idea from actual wealth. Scalability means your solution can reach more people without demanding proportionally more of your time. A local restaurant has a ceiling. A franchise can expand across hundreds of locations. A yoga instructor charging per session is still trading time for money. But a digital course can sell around the clock. Software scales. Digital products scale. Platform scale. Content scales. Ask yourself one question. If this works, can it keep working without me physically present? If the answer is no, you may have built a job disguised as a business. Automation matters. Systems matter. Documentation matters. Delegation matters. Build systems. Hire talented people. Remove yourself from day-to-day dependence. The goal is not to become the center of the machine. The goal is to make the machine work without you. Once the machine is running, two paths open up. You either keep building or you sell. Instagram was acquired by Facebook for $1 billion. PayPal was acquired by eBay for $1.5 billion. Every day, businesses are bought for millions because they solve valuable problems. That is the equation completing itself. But let's be honest about what this was really chasing. It was never the money. Not really. Money is paper. Money is numbers on a screen. Its power exists because we collectively agree it does. What you were actually after was freedom. The freedom to clear your family's debts, to travel without constant financial anxiety, to wake up without an alarm, to spend your time on things that truly matter. That feeling is a destination. Money is simply the vehicle. And running beneath every lesson in this video is one resource that matters more than all the others. Time. Time is the only thing that never refills. Every hour traded away is gone forever. The question isn't whether you can afford to pursue a better equation. The question is whether you can afford not to. Maybe you're not in a position to chase this right now. Maybe survival is still the priority. That's okay. But one shift in thinking costs nothing. Ask yourself, what problem am I solving, and could I solve it better? That question works in a job, in a side hustle, in a business, in a salary negotiation, because the principle underneath it never changes. Money follows value, and value follows solutions. So here is the equation one final time. Find a problem the market genuinely has. Build a scalable solution around it. Let systems do the heavy lifting. And collect what naturally comes to those who create real value. Stop chasing money. Chase the problem. The money is what happens when you solve it well. If you want to go deeper into these ideas, explore the work of M.J. DeMarco. And remember this, most people who attempt this path won't finish it. Not because it's impossible, but because failure is part of the process. Fail fast. Learn faster. Keep going. Because the people who do eventually succeed discover something remarkable. It wasn't worth it because they got rich. It was worth it because they got free.